start with approving the minutes from the last meeting. A motion, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Number 1, preventing the hiring of former county legislators and the family members of current and former county legislators by the County of Albany. Is the sponsor here?
Nope, table his request.
Table at the request to sponsor that. Number 2, amending the Albany County Legislative Rules of Order. And Chris, was this yours or was this?
This is mine.
This one's yours? Yeah. Wasn't this being worked on in conjunction with number 4?
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Mendick about that, and I think I'm interested in asking for a vote on this now.
Okay.
It's been in committee for 5 months and bounced around.
All right.
So.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. We've discussed it. I discussed it with Rich.
Right. Okay. Discussion. Now, this would prevent the chairperson from referring something to a second committee. Once it's been to one committee, it couldn't then go to a second committee.
Yes.
Okay, that's the purpose of it.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah,
these
right.
unilateral situations where all of a sudden bills are referred back to committee and nobody knows why.
Right.
Well, no recommendation, making a recommendation, what's the pleasure?
I don't know what the feeling of the committee is. We can send it out, we can have a vote to send it out without recommendation.
Sure.
Is that what you want to do?
Wherever you want.
Okay. I mean, that'd probably work,
I'll
right?
make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sent out without recommendation. Number 3, amending the Albany County Charter and adopting the charter proposal of the Albany County Charter Review Commission. Mr. Kraus?
Yes, you will see attached to the agenda here 3 components of what was the original resolution. We've broken them down into 3 components, basically tackling 1, and these are in no order of preference, by the way. 1, reducing the size of the legislature in a 2-step process. 2, creating a majority-minority redistricting commission along with the general redistricting commission. And 3, general cleanup of the bill, which contains many of the recommendations of the Charter Commission and some of the recommendations of the committee and numerous technical corrections that needed to be made. And so this would then go to public hearing, obviously, for the hearing.
And at this point, in order to get this on the, Mr. Kraus and I have met regarding this on a few occasions, and we've sort of backed up from the date of the general election to when we would have to have a vote on these. And in order to meet that timeline, we would have to have public hearings on these, what is it?
July 26th.
July 26th. So essentially, that's what we'd be voting on tonight, to send these 3 proposed local laws to public hearing July 26th.
Correct.
Okay. Question, Chris? Or?
Well, I guess for the sponsor.
Yes, sir.
How did you arrive at 33 districts instead of 29 or 25?
Well, it's a 2-step process. Chris, 29, as you know, failed before, and there were a lot of reasons for that. Some of them we know, some of them we think we know. But it was suggested that perhaps if we phase this in over a longer period of time, it would have a greater chance of success with the legislators. As you know, the turnover here is between 4 and 10 every 4 years. This year was 14. Only 3 of those as a result of losing an election. So 11 of our colleagues left voluntarily. And I think it's easier when you're downsizing, obviously. It reduces the size of the impact on folks who may be a little uncomfortable with what it may mean for them individually. 29 is the ultimate number, but obviously it's out there for a longer period of time. And that's really to try to gain as much consensus as possible among the legislators that are here.
For anyone here who hasn't had an opportunity to read this, Mr. Krause's proposal is to downsize to 33 at the time of the next census, and then to 29 at the time of the following census. So it would be a two-step process.
And it was important to keep it at an odd number, so that we wouldn't have.
Can you have a local law that effectively has a two-step process instead of setting the number and then setting it again after the fact? Because let's say you're binding successive elected bodies of the legislature, 20, 24, 20 years out almost.
The current charter binds everybody to 39 for successive legislatures.
So I'm saying the local law, the mayor of the local law itself.
But this is the same as, the charter's a local law as well. The charter currently binds us to 39.
Sure, and I'm saying, can you do a two-step process?
Yes.
Through the mayor?
There's no reason not to.
If we did a one-step process, we're binding future legislators.
Well, sure, I understand that, but I'm saying after the next census. I mean, I'm interested in that from a legal perspective, I suppose. Are we gonna get an opinion on a proposal at all from the county attorney's office?
I suppose at some point if somebody requested that, but I don't see that, myself, I just don't see that as an issue at all. I mean, whatever we're doing is binding future legislatures.
Well, I think, the other issue too we're running into is this whole issue of the municipal home rule law, and whether or not we can do it post to effect for this year, for the census for next year, right? Is that an issue?
No,
Didn't we go through that last year in 2015?
we're not doing the redistricting until the next census, which is what we're supposed to do. And the
Yeah.
census in 2030 will be the next time. So those are it's not like you're redistricting twice within one 10-year period. You're doing it once each 10-year period, which is what you're supposed to do under the law anyway.
Right, and, we can't, under the federal court order, as I understand it, that was a result of the, MMD litigation, we can't change it at all until after the next census. So this changes it after that census, and it changes it then again at the following census. My understanding, I haven't seen them, but my understanding is that other counties have adopted this two-step, to reduce over a period of time. And I'm not aware of any legal theory where that could be called into question.
I don't know. I guess it'd be interesting to see what the county attorney has to say about it. So if we can send it over to him.
Well, I don't have a problem eliciting an opinion from the county attorney. I mean, I think the legislative attorneys here have done their due diligence on it as well. But if we're interested in having another opinion, I imagine that they will be at the public hearing giving us an opinion anyway, but
Who, the county attorney?
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know.
The only thing is, if we were to, let's say, delay this in order to get an opinion from the county attorney, it will not get on the ballot this year. There's not much time to do this.
Well, if it doesn't take effect until 2024, that big of a rush.
True.
We just dealt with this
but
issue last year, and as Peter noted, it was voted down.
I don't know that there's any real urgency to it, but I think Mr. Kraus has certainly expressed to me anyway, a strong interest in moving this to get on the ballot this year.
Mr. Chairman, can we pass this contingent upon the county attorney's opinion, or do we just bypass,
Well,
or we need it to wind up going out?
Yeah, at this point, we're not passing anything anyway. We're not even voting on the substance of it.
Just on
We're
the
voting to
hearing.
schedule public hearings, on-
Yeah, I don't have a problem
on the
scheduling a
three
public
local
hearing
laws.
today, with the assumption that we'll get something in the interim from that office. They seem pretty quick about it. And for the record, I support downsizing. I would like to do it immediately and go below 29, quite frankly.
Well, it's
If I
Mr.
thought
Kraus's
that was
legislation.
doable, I would have presented it that way.
Well, who knows, the new legislature might have some amendments.
Well, you could introduce a local law, Chris, if you'd like to, but you're not gonna get it on for this year.
Sure.
Mr. Kraus is gonna beat you. Okay.
If there was any, I was gonna make a motion.
Well, it's got to pass the
For the
legislature
public
first.
hearing.
I think we're bypassing a
Schedule a
pretty big
public hearing.
step.
Yeah, it's
Pretty big
scheduled,
step.
thank you.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion
Is
to...
this for all three, just to clarify, or for the one? Are we gonna vote on each one of these separately?
Well, I think the motion is to schedule public hearings for
For
all
all
three.
three, yeah.
Okay, that's the motion, and the second.
Wait, can I ask a few more questions?
Sure.
So what, if they're local laws, why is there a resolution also?
The resolution was
Because this,
was introduced
Sure.
in the beginning, and at the time, we wanted to make sure that we had the entire issue out in front of everyone with a
sure,
chart.
but it's, a resolution is completely different than a local law.
Yes,
I think shouldn't it be introduced separately as a separate piece of legislation as a local law and not appended to a resolution since they have?
it will be. That is a separate local law.
I mean, I didn't,
That will be
I mean,
local
shouldn't
law.
it be, I guess I'm curious to know why it wouldn't be on an agenda as a new local law on the agenda for the July meeting and then refer to the meeting like every other piece of legislation. I feel like we're bypassing that process by appending it essentially to something that's already on this agenda so we can move forward instead of following. I mean, that's the way it should be done, in my opinion. I think that you're appending a local law onto a resolution.
Well,
And it's a totally different article here, totally different mechanism, because you're amending the charter this way, and you cannot do that through a resolution.
well, the original resolution, which has been on the, this committee's agenda without objection from anyone, including you, Chris,
Sure.
was a resolution which appended the commission's proposed local law. All Mr. Kraus did was maintain that resolution and break the local law into three parts,
But with all
with
this,
some amendments.
this, for example, local law F is not what the commission recommended. This is a different proposal completely, with a different number of downsizing over a completely different set period of time than what the commission recommended. So, I mean, we could say it's what the commission recommended, but it's really not. It's an idea or a proposal that the commission came forward with, but with different specific facts. I mean, that's undisputable.
You are correct.
And as you just said, we can amend the commission's report just
Sure.
as you can amend these.
And that would not be a resolution, that would be a local law,
That's correct.
which needs to be introduced separately, put on an agenda, and referred to committee through a proper process.
This matter was before this committee for several months.
And-
It is now being forwarded as a local law to the body. If the body feels that way, they can reject it.
Well, with all due respect, we're not following the rules as they've been laid out for every member. I mean, and if people want to close their eyes or hold their nose, they can, but I think, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, then it must be a duck.
What
This is a
rule,
local-
Chris, are you saying? is
About
not
the
being followed?
introduction of legislation.
No, what rule?
I mean, I don't have a copy of the legislative rules of order. If someone wants to give them to me, I'm sure I can cite to it. I mean, but we're appending a local law to a resolution. It's a different item.
Well, we've had, forever, since I've been in the legislature, it's been up to the sponsor. Sponsors all the time bring something before committees, and they make modifications while it's in committee. This has been pending before this committee since the first meeting, I think, or January or February meeting. February meeting, and Mr. Kraus has introduced some amendments to his proposal, and he's requested that we go to public hearing.
Sure, but it's now a local law. It's separate and distinct from.
It always was a local law.
It wasn't.
Yes, it was. His original proposal, which has been in the agenda every month, was a local law.
I mean, it's changed, now it's three different local laws.
Right.
F,
He's
G,
amended it to
F,
have-
G, and H.
He's broken it into three pieces because he apparently, I'm not going to speak for him, thinks that that is a more logical way to handle his proposal. I'll let Mr. Kraus speak to that.
I mean, I'm looking over here, it wasn't introduced, it says resolution introduced 2/9/16 in resolution format, not in local law format. I mean, I don't
The
mean-
resolution introduced the local law.
I don't believe it did.
It's been on the agenda
It's been on-
since the beginning of the year, since February 9th.
Yeah, that big
Right,
one,
correct.
this one.
That's correct.
No, I mean,
Yes.
Well, shouldn't it just be one big local amended version of that original and not three separate pieces?
The reason it was broken into three separate pieces was a determination of the greatest chance of success and not have some important pieces that people might feel are more important than others not pass because other parts of it would not be passed. You know, the charter amendment failed this past November. And I think almost everyone at this table, including the press, would indicate the reason that happened is because the downsizing of the legislature was not included in that local law. And to make things even more complicated, in that local law, it said the legislature would decide the size of the legislature and not give the people an opportunity to have a vote. So, breaking it down this way, I think gives us a better opportunity that at least some of this will happen. Because if we package it again as one big item, I don't think it exits the legislative process with a reduction in the legislature.
Yeah, but wouldn't you agree that's a complete deviation from what the original proposal was, which was one omnibus bill?
Well, I think if you're looking at line for line, it's not the identical thing of what was in the Charter Commission. The idea of reducing the size of the legislature was, and the idea of having a redistricting commission was. But I've amended it to take a little bit of a different path in that way. And as far as the logistics as to what's legally appropriate,
I've never heard of one local law being amended into three different new local law, you go through a process, local law moves to an A print, a B print, a C print. If you wanna break pieces out, I get it, but I don't see how you can just break them out into new individual local laws.
well,
Well,
I'm just looking for a legal opinion on it.
Pat,
I don't see a problem with doing it this way. I think the issue is, do we want to get this on the ballot this year? It has been proposed by Mr. Kraus. He has taken a tack that he feels is most appropriate to get it on the ballot and have it voted on it by the public with an understanding of what the different parts are. And I think that's relevant to what we're doing here. I think it is very relevant that it's going to be in a format that the public has an opportunity to express themselves on various parts of this.
And I don't disagree with that, I just think that we have a process and we should follow it.
What?
I don't think we are following it. That's my
No.
opinion, look, people have different opinions, 39.
Well, I mean, we can, I guess, take a vote of the committee whether we want to follow the process proposed by Mr. Kraus. And I think the vote will be really on Mrs. Lockhart's motion, which is to schedule these three for public hearing. If you think we're following the appropriate process, the vote will probably be yes, and if you think we're not, the vote will be no.
Can I ask another question? Assuming that the public hearings, which I support, I'll vote for that, and they go out, we have the public hearings on 7/26, like we just discussed, and the issue on these actual local laws, moving them out of committee would be on the August law committee meeting, to be voted on in September?
No.
I guess what is the timeframe?
The timeframe, well, I'll let Mr. Jefferson.
The time frame is very tight. The time frame would be that we would have a special meeting after the public hearing to get, just as we did last year with respect to the Charter Commission's recommendation. We will go forward from there and have a vote. The time frame is such that there has to be a vote on this by late July or early August by the full legislature. Otherwise, it will not be on the ballot this year.
And the reason for that is the county executive has 30 days to hold his public hearing and decide to, sign it or veto it. And then, if he vetoes one or more of these, we have to leave time for the legislature to have a special meeting to perhaps override it, if that's what the legislature wants to do. And it has to be in final form 60 days before
That's
the
correct.
elections.
It has to be passed 60 days before the general election, which is November 8th, which means the last day to pass it would be September 8th. If there's a veto.
So this would get it potentially on the ballot this year. one or more of these to get off the task.
So G, just so I'm clear, in local law G, this is just these 2 pages here for the Independent Redistricting Commission?
That's correct.
That's correct.
And so what, when you flip it, where it
The
says-
other one has to be put in a local law. It's all the changes that were recommended by both the commission and the legislature last year. They're taken out of the resolution or the local law that went before the public with respect to all those other things.
So this is just a
At this point,
redlined
it's not a local law because I have to create the actual thing around it, but it is a local law. It's going to be a local law on those points. It's just a matter of writing put it in a format.
I'd like, if it's possible, I'd like to vote on them individually.
Sure, okay.
Because,
Brian,
I
you
mean, this is the third one. It's just like it's a document. I don't even,
It's not in the local law form, I agree, but, we're trying to get this done this year, and we wanted to get everything before this committee that's being considered. Everything that's gonna be in that local law is in that list of things. It'll be, all it's gonna say now is being enacted, that's the change.
Right.
On the third one, the charter revision points, that does not have the Article 32 adding crime victim center, which we did.
That's already in.
But shouldn't it, because
No,
this
no.
documents the whole, but this has every article, of the charter in here, shouldn't it be in
No,
here?
it doesn't have every article, it has the changes only. Article 32 is already part of the charter. What that has
This
is,
is only the changes?
yes.
Okay, understood.
32 is in,
Okay,
or
understood.
whatever number it is, I forgot what number it
I
is.
don't remember either.
20, it's 29.
Okay,
The new ones, there's 2 new ones there. Probation and Board of Elections are currently in the charter as one sentence. The Charter Commission recommended they be fully included, and that's why they're at the end of this thing, is 30 and 31.
okay, understood.
Okay, so why don't we vote then? There's a request to vote on these individually. Is that okay with you?
It's fine with me.
Patty? Okay.
I would just also, just for the record, renew my objection to these being broken out. Me voting on these now in no way contradicts my point earlier about the formatting of the proposal.
Right. Okay. So we have a motion then to schedule a public hearing for local law F.
Correct.
And there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then next, there's a motion to schedule a public hearing for local law G, which is the Redistricting Commission. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then,
What will be H.
okay, so we'll call this H, and there's a motion to schedule a public hearing for local law H, which is the balance of the charter amendments that
Correct.
Mr. Kraus is proposing. Motion, second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No. I'd also like, if we can, to get opinions from the county attorney on these different local laws, if that's possible.
On the procedure, you mean?
Not the procedure necessarily, I think that's a legislative function, but just the legality of the 3 different.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I know we had gotten county attorney opinion regarding almost all of this a couple of years ago when we were going through it, and we did get the opinion that actually some of the commission's recommendations were illegal, so we had to adjust those, and you recall that, Chris?
Yeah, I just think it's good for the benefit of the new members, as Peter said, there's 14 new members, and I think, if it's possible, we should give them as much information as we
Sure.
can on what's coming across their desks.
Right, we could probably, I mean, I could pull out of an old file the previous opinion. I mean, that, obviously, it's an exhaustive job for the county attorney to go, the new county attorney to go back through this line by line. Okay, so anything further on number 3? If not, we'll go to number 4, amending the Albany County Legislative Rules of Order.
That's tabled at the request of the sponsor, I believe, correct, Mr. Best?
Yes.
Number 5, authorizing 50% of real property taxes collected by the County of Albany on real property conveyed by the Albany County Land Bank Corporation to be remitted to said entity.
We can table that.
Pardon?
We can table that.
Table, okay.
Just a quick question, Chris. Has there been any movement on the school board and or the city of Albany on what they plan on?
The school board had introduced a resolution, and I believe it was on their agenda for table a month ago. I have not followed up with them yet. Now that I'm seeing this, you've reminded me, Ralph, and I will call Kenny Bruce, the president, tomorrow, and see if I can get you an answer to that question.
Now, they're on, if I'm thinking correctly,
They
they're
did
on
introduce it, though.
a different fiscal year than what we are, because City of Albany, Albany County, January 1, December 31. They're what, June 1, May 31?
July
July.
1, June 30.
July 1, June 30th, okay.
Number 6, requiring all boards and commissions that are appointed by the county legislature to distribute meeting notices and agenda to the legislature. This is Mr. Drake.
It's tabled at his request.
Tabled at his request, okay. All right, current business, number 7, endorsing the criteria and procedures for determining assigned council eligibility promulgated by the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services.
I'm confused on this one. Not with the issue at all, which I think is excellent, but what's the role of our resolution here? And, I mean, it seems, from what I get from the whereas clause, the Office of Indigent Legal Services has already adopted these standards. And I think it was probably, per whatever the executive law section was, their ability to do it by their own regulation. I'm not clear what we're doing here in terms of,
We're going forward with the same, we're going to recommend that the same rules be applied here in Albany County, and a little more force behind them than with respect to the judiciary in Albany County.
but why? I mean, it looks like we're calling on the state to do something. Are we calling on our own PDs to apply these standards?
The PD doesn't apply them, the courts do.
So why do we have to weigh in on this?
We're just endorsing them and weighing in that Albany County wants these standards applied.
But aren't they already being?
To my knowledge, they're not being applied at the moment, no.
Would this give us basis for grant opportunities in the future, or give this some sort of?
It certainly wouldn't hurt.
I guess my concern is it looks like a calling on resolution, which have not been something we've done.
It could lead to quicker funding than perhaps we might otherwise get for this system if we employ it now.
I have no issue with this whatsoever. I think it's a great idea. I think we're graying the lines between calling on resolutions and not, and I have no problem if we move towards more calling on resolutions, but I think for good reasons, we didn't want to get into that, and this looks an awful lot like that to me.
Now, this is introduced by Mr. Ward, who I don't believe is here tonight, but I'm assuming he introduced it so that we could move this quickly. Is that bad?
He introduced it because he felt it was appropriate that we endorse these things and we support indigent legal services as much as we could. If you want to adjourn it because he's not here, I'm sure he wouldn't be that upset about it.
But there is an issue with us not, in Albany County, not really following eligibility requirements. I think you remember last term when public defender told us that they really didn't have time to check on people's eligibility. That they came in and just said, okay, need a lawyer, and got a lawyer. And so this is kind of, my understanding, is helping to set some more clear guidelines.
Right, I mean, I read them.
Yeah.
It's very detailed, and, I mean, I think the courts would welcome these because it's very concrete criteria for determining who's eligible.
Right.
Now, I really don't know how they do it.
The courts make the decision on who's eligible. What this is doing is endorsing these criteria in this county, and hopefully the courts will follow the criteria, because Albany County, as a group and as a legislature, wants these criteria followed.
So are we calling on the state?
They don't have any real effect on the court system because the Office of Indigent Legal Services
Right.
did them. But we have a little more say in what goes on in Albany County.
So are we calling on the county courts, or are we calling on the state here?
We're calling on the,
Looks
it's
like
the
we're calling on
county
the
courts
state.
that, it's the county courts that have the criminal cases, and it's also the family courts that have some of these cases.
But we're sending these up to the state.
No, we're just endorsing the criteria. This is the criteria we want applied in Albany County. That's what it boils down to.
With family court proceedings and criminal.
Yes. It doesn't affect Supreme Court unless it's a criminal proceeding.
So,
Then why don't we just adopt it rather than endorsing the state to do it? I don't know if I'm splitting hairs here, but
Because we can't tell the courts, we can't officially tell a judge what to do because we're a legislature. There's something, as you know, separation of powers. We can certainly endorse and recommend and request that the courts do this, but we cannot force the courts to do this.
I think that as the body that provides the bulk of financing for indigent legal services, and over the next few years, that's going to change with the passage of the Fahey bill, might be important to a court in deciding what criteria to apply, that the body that has the responsibility for paying the bill, us, has endorsed these criteria.
do we have some sort of a document that shows the differences between the current practice in Albany County Court and family court in Albany County and what this endorsement is?
The actual practice, am I
I'd be
saying, am I
interested
wrong
in
in
what-
saying that is unknown to us? Is that fair?
I would say so.
Yeah. I'm not trying to
We've asked-
be funny here
We've asked a lot
either.
about that in this committee last session, last body.
I mean, that seems like an important fact to know.
I'm not aware of any written standards.
Neither am I.
I mean, I don't think there are any.
Which is why we'd like to have some.
I know I questioned that, Chris.
Standards for determining criteria for eligibility. I've been through it over the weekend. I've seen them, quite frankly.
Right, these that we're voting on tonight, you're talking about.
I'm not talking about these, they've already got standards.
I don't know if we should request that kind of information, but I'd be interested to see what family court, what criteria they have, what the major difference is.
Good question.
I mean, I don't know how we would even get that. I mean, we should have something considering we're the ones paying the bill,
Right.
like we've just noted.
Well, that's been a bone of contention for many years.
Well, Mr. Bullock apparently is aware of them. Maybe you could share with us what you were looking at. I mean, I'm not aware of any written standards that are currently in existence. You're saying in Albany County there are written standards that are in existence?
Yeah, for something like legal aid, there's a whole bunch of standards that a recipient has to meet in order to qualify. And it's very vast, like you can't own a car for over $8,000. It's kind of ridiculous, but I've seen it over the weekend.
Okay, all right.
For
But-
criminal defense? For criminal defense or civil or anything?
Civil,
Civil,
But
okay.
it's nothing that,
eligibility,
but it's nothing that the county legislature has ever adopted.
no,
Right.
I haven't seen.
And
I'd like to know what's in place, like Chris asked. There's gotta be something in place.
I think
that's
there's a
all I'm saying.
difference between civil actions and criminal
okay.
for the
Yeah, this is
eligibility.
pertaining to criminal.
Yeah, these are
that's- I
criminal
think that's a
cases.
little bit
Criminal
different.
cases, two different things.
It's-
Okay.
Only both. Is eligibility and
Well, so nobody knows apparently, so.
I haven't spoken to Mr. Ward about this. I mean, I don't.
You can table it since he's not here, I'm sure we can.
It's crazy as it sounds. I'd be interested to see what the DA has to say about it,
Yeah.
and maybe if some
Public defender,
representative
really.
from OCA wants to.
Well,
Well,
The
actually, the
DA
public
probably has a
defender.
conflict of interest.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody has to opine on this. Well, not the DA, but
The public defender.
we don't have currently a public
Oh,
defender.
who's interested? I don't know.
So you want to make it, you want to make a motion to table it, or you want to table it to request a sponsor?
We can table the request to sponsor.
All right.
Is there a time frame on this?
No.
Is that something that we can at least ask the public defender's office if they, if something exists, provide it to the committee?
I don't know if we have an answer to this, but like you said, Pat, there's this separation of branches of government here. Even if we adopt this, can we force
No.
OCA?
No, we can't force anybody to do it. But we pay the bills.
Or we get. I mean, if we had some sort of a stick, you know, it'd be different story.
Well, first, don't you have to, even if you were to go to the public, have to at least have some standards that
Well,
you're trying to?
I'm not saying it's a bad
Yeah,
idea.
no,
I'm
I
just-
know. I think,
a good idea.
I'd like to know
It's
what,
unfortunate we can't apply it to them and say,
I think there's a
this is what we're
twofold,
willing to pay out, and you're gonna
I
enforce
think
it.
it's a twofold problem, whether there's written criteria, whatever, and then also, does the staff have the time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, different
And that's what we
judges-
keep hearing, is that they, public defender's office literally doesn't have
These-
staff
Sure.
to be able to check out incomes and whether
These
they have
criteria are
cars
much
or
more
not.
liberal in terms
Yeah.
of granting representation of indigent people,
Much more liberal?
yes.
Because I don't ask now, which is.
I know, but theoretically, they're more liberal than what's currently being employed, theoretically.
Protected by legal aid.
Yeah, that's, I know, that's legal aid
Yeah, private.
has their own, yeah,
Criteria.
yeah, they do, you're right,
Motion to adjourn.
but it's,
That's it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second, all in favor?